It is with great sorrow, regret, collective memory pain that I compile this historical account of what has become known as the Terran catastrophe. As is customary for all historical records of significant galaxy-changing events, I have endeavored to present the facts with minimal bias, though I acknowledge my perception is colored by the outcome of these events. Let future generations learn from our arrogance, overconfidence. The primitive water world, designated as P3721, third from its unremarkable G-type star, was first catalogued by our advanced scouts in the 947th cycle of expansion. Initial scans revealed a nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, extensive surface water, and signs of primitive industrialization. What made this discovery notable was not the planet itself. The consortium had catalogued thousands of similar worlds, but rather the peculiar life forms that dominated its surface. Species 3071, self-designated as humans, represented an anomaly in our understanding of evolutionary patterns. Our surveillance drones observed a bipedal mammalian species with minimal natural defenses, unremarkable physical capabilities, and puzzlingly high energy requirements. Yet these creatures had achieved technological advancement far beyond what our predictive models suggested possible for their evolutionary stage and physical limitations. Commander Veldrix of the scout vessel, Distant Whisper, transmitted the following in his initial report. The creatures of P3721 defy conventional classification. Despite their fragile construction, they have manipulated their environment to an extraordinary degree. Their technological progression appears chaotic and unplanned. They develop weapons before medicine, luxury before efficiency, and entertainment before sustainability. They are, by all measurable standards, irrational. Most concerning is their use of untranslatable concept, similar to atomic fission, as a weapon against their own kind. Recommend immediate elevation to threat assessment category. The High Council, upon receiving this report, dispatched the research vessel Endless Inquiry to conduct a more thorough analysis before determining the appropriate contact protocol. The research team, led by the esteemed xenobiologist Dr. Myrtle, spent a full solar cycle observing humanity without detection. Their findings contradicted several fundamental principles of our xenosociological framework. Humans displayed a perplexing combination of traits that, by all understood laws of evolution, should not coexist in a successful species. They were simultaneously social and individualistic to extremes not observed in any other known sentient species. They exhibited extraordinary adaptability, thriving in environments ranging from Arctic to desert conditions. They possessed remarkable psychological resilience, routinely recovering from catastrophic events that should have collapsed their civilization. They demonstrated an unusual capacity for both logical reasoning and emotional decision-making, often to their detriment. Most alarmingly, they appeared to become more productive when threatened or constrained, a trait previously undocumented in any spacefaring civilization. In her comprehensive report to the High Council, Dr. Myrtle wrote, "If I were to characterize humans in a single sentence, it would be this: they are a species that has evolved to turn failure into adaptation. When they should retreat, they advance. When they should surrender, they resist. When they should die, they innovate." I believe this stems from their unusually violent evolutionary history and the unique development of their frontal cortex. While individually fragile, their collective response to existential threats is unlike anything in our records. The report included a detailed analysis of human warfare, which particularly troubled the military strategic command. General Zandor noted that humans had developed more methods of killing in their short history than the combined arsenals of all consortium species. More disturbing was their apparent willingness to accept catastrophic losses in pursuit of victory, a concept so foreign to our efficient, loss-averse military doctrine that many strategists initially dismissed the findings as observational errors. The High Council convened an emergency session to determine the appropriate response to the existence of humanity. The transcript of this session has become required study for all political apprentices as a cautionary tale in decision-making. Supreme Counselor Vexenar advocated for immediate integration. These humans represent a fascinating evolutionary branch. Their rationality makes them unpredictable, but also potentially valuable. I propose we initiate standard diplomatic protocols and begin the process of bringing them into the consortium as a protectorate species. Head of Military Operations Kroltak disagreed vehemently. The preliminary data suggest humans are fundamentally incompatible with consortium values. They prioritize individual will over collective harmony. Their history is one of constant internal warfare. Adding such chaos to our carefully structured society would be disastrous. The debate continued for 7 time units, with the council dividing into 3 clear factions. The integrationists, led by Vexnar, who believed humans could be gradually incorporated into the consortium, with their more problematic tendencies modified through standard cultural engineering. The isolationists, led by Grand Scholar Ithlon, who advocated for quarantining the Sol system, allowing humans to develop independently while being subtly monitored. The interventionists, led by Krotak, who argued that humanity represented an unacceptable future risk and should be preemptively subjugated or eliminated before achieving interstellar capabilities. The decisive moment came during the testimony of James Walker, a human male who had been secretly acquired for study by our xenobiology division. Walker had been subjected to standard untranslatable concepts similar to psychological profiling procedures to assess human reasoning and emotional responses. During his interview with the council, Walker exhibited the inexplicable human capacity to remain defiant optimistic despite his hopeless situation. When informed that his species was being evaluated for potential extermination, he laughed, a response so inappropriate that the council's translator units initially registered it as a malfunction. His response, now infamous in our historical records, was as follows. "You folks really don't get it, do you? You think because you picked me up without a fight that we're easy pickings? Let me explain something about humans. We've spent our entire history killing each other over everything from religion to resources to which sports team is better. The only thing that will unite us faster than a common enemy is a superior common enemy. You come at Earth with your fancy ships and your advanced tech, thinking you'll find submission. What you'll find is the most dangerous thing in the universe, humans with their backs against the wall and nothing left to lose. We don't just fight to win, we fight to survive, and we're really, really good at surviving." The recording shows that Krotak's emotion indicators shifted to alarm patterns immediately following this statement. After extensive deliberation, the High Council reached a compromise solution. Earth would be approached diplomatically, with a display of overwhelming technological superiority but no overt hostility. Humans would be offered membership in the consortium as a protected species, with appropriate technological gifts to demonstrate goodwill. This approach satisfied neither the isolationists nor the interventionists fully, but was accepted as a measured response to a complex situation. What followed was a failure of our most basic protocols. Fleet Commander Drazkor, nephew of Kroltak and a rising star in military command, took unauthorized action, believing the Council's approach to be dangerously naive and convinced by the xenopsychological analysis that humans would never peacefully accept a subordinate role in the galactic community. He deployed his battle group to Sol without notification. His final transmission to military command, sent after his fleet had already departed, read, "By the time you receive this, Operation Swift Mercy will be underway. I take full responsibility for acting without Council approval, but necessity compels me. The creatures of P-3721 represent an unacceptable future risk. Their psychological profile indicates they would eventually rebel against any constraints we place upon them. Better to deal with primitives armed with chemical rockets than wait until they develop untranslatable concept, similar to faster-than-light travel. I will return once the human threat has been neutralized and accept whatever consequences the Council deems appropriate." As we now know, Commander Drazkor never returned. None of his fleet did. What happened in the Sol system would forever change our understanding of warfare, of courage, and of the terrible mistake we made in underestimating the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever known. Commander Drazkor's battle group, designated Strike Force Inevitable, consisted of 3 Dominance-class warships, 7 Subjugation-class cruisers, and 22 Swift Executioner assault craft. By consortium military standards, this represented overwhelming force for a pre-spaceflight civilization, sufficient to conquer 3 fully spacefaring worlds simultaneously. The complement of 17,000 warrior caste personnel had all undergone the glory preparation ritual, believing they were embarking on a simple purification mission rather than what would become known as the First Terran Engagement. The battle group's tactical logs, recovered from a damaged command beacon, reveal the overconfidence that permeated every level of planning. Tactical simulations complete. Estimated resistance time 2.7 time units. Estimated casualty rate 0.02%. Primary targets identified: 37 military command centers, 43 power generation facilities, 218 communication hubs. Species 37-1 possesses no effective countermeasures to our shield technology. Recommendation: Standard Conquest Pattern, Delta. Most telling was the personal log entry of Sub-Commander Vextor, found in the wreckage of his escape pod. The warriors are treating this as a training exercise rather than a true battle. Many are disappointed at being assigned to such a primitive world. I have authorized recreational shore leave for the 2nd and 3rd Battalions following the initial pacification phase. Perhaps observing these humans in their natural habitat will provide some educational value to compensate for the lack of challenging combat. How grievously they underestimated their enemy. Strike Force, Inevitable, arrived in the Sol system on the 42nd day of the 97th cycle. Following standard protocol, they positioned themselves behind the large gas giant designated Jupiter to calibrate their targeting systems and prepare their invasion plan. Commander Drazkor chose to announce his presence with a demonstration of power, targeting an uninhabited citadel of the primary world. The moon, as humans called it, was partially destroyed by a single medium-yield, untranslatable weapon concept blast. The psychological impact was expected to induce mass surrender without further resistance. The humans did not surrender. Within 0.3 time units, orbital monitoring detected launches from multiple locations on the planet's surface. The primitive chemical rockets were initially dismissed as ineffectual gestures of defiance. This was the first critical error. The missile barrage was indeed ineffective against consortium shields. However, the launches served their actual purpose, trajectory plotting. Human targeting systems were calibrating with each launch, gathering data on our shield geometries and response patterns. Most significantly, these initial exchanges revealed that humans had detected our battle group long before we arrived in their system. Their primitive observational satellites, which our intelligence had dismissed as inadequate, had been tracking our approach for days. They were waiting for us. The initial invasion wave consisted of 16 swift executioner craft targeting military installations across the landmass. Humans called North America. They encountered no resistance during atmospheric entry, another deception that our commanders misinterpreted as technological inadequacy. The first indication that the operation was not proceeding according to plan came when Swift Executioner 7 reported unusual readings from the surface, detecting massive energy spike at target location Delta 17, readings inconsistent with known human technology, requesting analysis. The transmission ended abruptly. Within moments, 7 more assault craft went silent. The surviving craft transmitted visual data that confounded our tactical analysts. Humans had deployed ground-based energy weapons concealed in what appeared to be civilian structures. These weapons, while primitive compared to consortium technology, demonstrated an unexpected understanding of directed energy principles. More disturbing was their quantity. Humans had apparently dedicated enormous resources to building thousands of these defensive installations in secret. Commander Drazkor, still confident in his overwhelming technological advantage, deployed the second wave, 3 subjugation-class cruisers to neutralize the ground defenses. What happened next defies explanation by conventional military theory. As the cruisers descended to optimal bombardment altitude, they were met with an unprecedented electronic warfare attack. Human systems, which our intelligence had classified as primitive and isolated, somehow bypassed our most sophisticated encryption protocols and temporarily disabled shield coordination on all 3 vessels. In the 4.2 time units that the shields were compromised, humans launched what our analysts later determined were kinetic penetrator rods from orbit. Weapons they had apparently positioned in secret, disguised as communication satellites. The simple yet devastatingly effective weapons tore through the exposed hull of subjugation cruiser Indomitable, destroying it completely. The 2 remaining cruisers managed to restore shields, but the psychological damage was done. For the first time in 17 generations, consortium forces had suffered significant casualties in first contact with a pre-spaceflight species. Commander Drazkor's response was recorded in the command log. These creatures possessed technology inconsistent with their development stage. Suspect contamination by prohibited, untranslatable concept, similar to technological uplift. Adjusting tactical approach to level 5, threat response. The commander deployed his remaining forces in a defensive formation and prepared for a full-scale orbital bombardment, a drastic escalation that had not been employed since the Nexvar rebellion 3 centuries earlier. It was at this moment that humans revealed their most shocking capability. As the Dominance-class warship, Eternal Victory moved into bombardment position over the landmass designated North America. Sensors detected a subspace distortion originating from the surface, a technological capability that should have been impossible for humans to possess. The distortion field expanded rapidly, enveloping the warship before defensive countermeasures could be deployed. When the field collapsed, the Eternal Victory was simply gone. Not destroyed, but displaced to an unknown location. The tactical log of the remaining command ship captures the moment when Commander Drazkor finally understood what they were facing. They were waiting. The weapons, the tactics, the technology. They knew we were coming. This was not just defense. This was a trap, centuries in the making. Evacuation order given. Priority message to High Command. Species 3071 possesses untranslatable concept similar to dimensional manipulation technology. Recommend immediate untranslatable extreme emergency protocol. The evacuation order came too late. The battle group's retreat was cut off by what observers described as a wall of light that surrounded the entire system. Strike Force Inevitable had become Strike Force Trapped, outmaneuvered by creatures they had dismissed as primitives just hours earlier. The terror that swept through the remaining consortium forces was palpable even in the clinical language of the final transmissions. They had come expecting an easy conquest. What they found was humanity, united, prepared and unleashing technological capabilities they had kept hidden until the moment they were needed most. The galaxy would never be the same. The capture of the subjugation-class cruiser Relentless Doctrine intact represents perhaps the most consequential military intelligence failure in consortium history. When the vessel's emergency protocols failed during the initial engagement, its commander, Subcommander Krelvar, ordered all sensitive technology destroyed before abandonment. This order was only partially executed. Human forces, led by their Special Operations Command, boarded the disabled vessel within hours of its forced landing in the region designated Nevada. What followed was an engineering and scientific achievement that our analysts still struggle to comprehend. According to recovered human military communications, their scientists accomplished in 17 Earth days what would have taken a typical spacefaring civilization at least 30 cycles, the complete reverse engineering of consortium propulsion, weapons, and shield technology. The classified human document known as Operation Prometheus details their methodology. Teams have been divided by specialty. Propulsion Group has successfully identified the principles behind the alien FTL drive. Weapons Division reports breakthrough in replicating their energy weapons using modified particle accelerator technology. Material Science has extracted the quantum-level programming of their self-repairing hull alloys. Most significantly, Communications Team has cracked their encryption and can now intercept and understand all enemy transmissions. The speed of this adaptation cannot be explained by conventional understanding of technological development curves. When questioned after the conflict, captured human scientist Dr. Michael Davis provided this disturbing response.
You think this was fast?
You should have seen what we did with the Roswell craft back in the 30s. The truth is, we've been preparing for this day since we split the atom. Every major technological advance in the last century had a black-budget military application aimed at exactly this scenario. We didn't just reverse engineer your tech, we improved it. Our xenopsychologists now theorize that humanity's unique combination of competitive resource allocation, what they call capitalism, and centralized crisis response, wartime production, creates an adaptation velocity unmatched by any known civilization. When threatened, they appear capable of technological leaps that should require generations to achieve. The human counteroffensive began precisely 31 Earth days after Commander Drazkor's initial attack. The operation they designated Righteous Thunder represented a level of strategic sophistication that contradicted all previous assessments of human military capability. Rather than the chaotic, emotionally driven response our strategists predicted, humanity executed a precisely coordinated strike against all remaining consortium vessels. Most remarkably, they utilized a previously unknown network of orbital platforms disguised as debris or defunct satellites, a defensive system apparently constructed in secret over decades. The human assault craft employed technologies that mimicked but improved upon consortium designs. Their vessels, designated Avenger class in their communications, incorporated our shield geometries but modified with rapidly shifting harmonic patterns that our targeting systems could not lock onto. Their weapons utilized principles of our energy projection technology but amplified through methods our scientists still cannot fully explain. Most shocking was their use of what they termed quantum entanglement bombs, devices that created synchronized destructive events across multiple points in space-time. When detonated near the Dominance-class warship Eternal Subjugation, the weapon triggered simultaneous explosions throughout the vessel's key systems, bypassing compartmentalization safeguards that had been considered impenetrable. The battle lasted 2.7 time units. When it ended, all but one of the remaining consortium vessels had been destroyed or captured. It is here that the historical record takes its most confounding turn. By all logical calculations, after demonstrating their military superiority, humans should have proceeded with the total elimination of consortium forces. Their own historical records indicated this was their standard approach in conflicts where they achieved decisive advantage. Instead, they enacted what they called Operation Olive Branch. The sole surviving consortium vessel, the medical frigate Compassionate Remedy, was not only spared but given an escort of human ships. Admiral James Matson, commander of the human counteroffensive, transmitted the following message on all consortium frequencies. To the Zint'Ha Consortium, you came to our world uninvited and with hostile intent. We have demonstrated our capacity and willingness to defend ourselves. We now demonstrate something else, our capacity for mercy. This medical vessel will be allowed to return to your territory with its crew and all wounded personnel from captured vessels. They carry with them a message: Earth is not your enemy unless you choose to make us so. We seek neither conquest nor vengeance, but make no mistake, we will not tolerate any further aggression. The choice of peace or war now rests with you. The medical frigate was supplied with human medical technology specifically adapted to consortium biology, including treatments for injuries our own medical science had not yet mastered. The vessel was then provided with fuel, supplies, and a detailed map of safe passage back to consortium space. This action created violent disagreement among our leadership. Military command viewed it as a deception or sign of weakness. The diplomatic corps saw it as a sophisticated psychological operation. Only Grand Scholar Ithlorn recognized it for what it truly was, an expression of a moral framework utterly foreign to our understanding. In his classified analysis, Ithlorn wrote, "The human's action represents neither weakness nor strategy in our conventional understanding. They are demonstrating a concept they call proportional response, the belief that violence, even in self-defense, should be limited to the minimum necessary force. More importantly, they are showing us something our civilization has never encountered, the capacity to disengage from conflict when objectives are achieved, without elimination of the opponent. This is not mercy as we understand it, but something far more dangerous, the selective application of force guided by abstract principles rather than survival imperatives." The human counteroffensive culminated in what they designated Operation Lighthouse, the deployment of a fleet of 317 newly constructed vessels incorporating hybridized human consortium technology. This fleet did not head toward consortium space, as our analysts feared. Instead, it established a defensive perimeter around their entire star system, creating what humans called a line in the sand. Their technological achievements in this brief period defy rational explanation. Their Sentinel-class defensive platforms utilized principles of our most advanced shield technology, but enhanced with oscillating phase harmonics that our weapons could not penetrate. Their Prometheus-class battleships demonstrated faster-than-light capabilities, exceeding our most advanced vessels by a factor of 3. Most concerning to military command was the human deployment of what they termed stellar manipulation arrays, massive engineering projects capable of harnessing and directing the energy of their star itself as both a power source and potentially a weapon of unimaginable destructive capacity. The final communication from Admiral Matson to the High Council marked the moment when the balance of power irrevocably shifted. "We have analyzed your communication networks, your military deployments, and your technological capabilities. We understand the factional nature of your government and the debate occurring about how to respond to us. Let us simplify your decision. Any further hostile action against Earth or any human settlement will result in consequences beyond your comprehension. We don't want your territory. We don't want your resources. We want one thing only, to be left alone to determine our own destiny. The next move is yours. Choose wisely. Attached to this message was detailed intelligence on consortium military capabilities that our own Security Command had believed impossible for outsiders to access, including the locations of our primary shipyards, the movement patterns of our fleets, and complete technical specifications of our weapons systems. In a single Earth month, humanity had not merely repelled an invasion by a technologically superior force. They had achieved complete strategic dominance over a civilization thousands of years more advanced. The galaxy trembled. Translator's note: this section contains significant cultural concepts that defy direct translation. Approximations are provided where possible. Despite Admiral Matson's warning and the clear demonstration of human military superiority, the military command faction of the High Council, led by the now Supreme Commander Kroltak, authorized what would become known as the Last Folly, a massive assault fleet comprising nearly 40% of the consortium's total military capacity. The decision was driven by a fundamental misunderstanding of human psychology. As xenopsychologist Vrillanax explained in her post-conflict analysis, the military command interpreted humanity's mercy as evidence of internal division and weakness. They believed that a sufficient show of force would trigger humanity's historical pattern of factional conflict. Their strategy was based on the assumption that when faced with overwhelming force, humans would fragment into competing groups, seeking individual survival advantage. The Last Folly battle group, consisting of 413 warships and nearly 2 million warrior caste personnel, arrived at the edge of the Sol system on the 103rd day of the 97th cycle. They were met by a single human vessel, a small craft identified as the ESV Emissary, carrying only 3 occupants. The transcript of the communication between Supreme Commander Kroltak and Human Representative General Thomas Jackson reveals the fatal cultural misunderstanding. That Kroltak, your demonstration of power has been acknowledged. However, the consortium cannot allow a potential threat of your magnitude to exist unfettered. Surrender your weapons technology and accept our guidance, or face extermination. General Jackson, we were hoping you'd choose differently. We really were. But you still don't understand what you're dealing with, do you? We gave you a chance to walk away. That chance has now expired. Kroltak, your single vessel cannot stand against our armor. Surrender now and your people will be treated with untranslatable concepts similar to dignified subjugation. General Jackson, who said anything about fighting? At this point, the ESV Emissary transmitted a signal on all frequencies, not to the consortium fleet, but apparently directed at Sol itself. What followed defies explanation by conventional physics. The star underwent what human scientists later termed a controlled quantum fluctuation, a phenomenon that, according to all understood laws of stellar dynamics, should be impossible. The fluctuation generated a targeted subspace distortion that enveloped the entire consortium fleet. When the distortion field collapsed 0.3 time units later, the fleet remained physically intact, but completely disabled. Every power system, weapon and propulsion mechanism simultaneously failed. The warrior complement was unharmed but completely immobilized in a state humans described as suspended animation. The entire battle group, the pride of consortium military might, had been neutralized without destruction or loss of life. The formal surrender of the Xintar consortium was transmitted by the High Council exactly 0.7 time units after the neutralization of the Last Folly battle group. For the first time in our 17,000 cycle history, we had encountered a force that rendered our military power irrelevant. The surrender delegation, led by Supreme Councilor Vexnar, arrived at the human orbital facility designated New Hope Station, with the expectation of harsh terms and possible retribution. The human response confounded all predictions. The terms of the Treaty of Sol, as it came to be known, contained none of the punitive measures or resource appropriations typical of conquest. Instead, it focused on 3 principles that revealed the true nature of our new galactic neighbors: a non-aggression pact guaranteeing the territorial integrity of both humanity and the consortium, the establishment of a demilitarized zone between our territories, monitored by both parties, the creation of a cultural and scientific exchange program, Most shocking was the inclusion of what humans called a mutual defense clause, a commitment that in the event either party was attacked by a third force, the other would provide military assistance. When questioned about the absence of punitive measures, Admiral Matson provided a response that has since become central to our understanding of human philosophy. Taking your ships and technology would be easy. Taking your worlds would be possible, but neither would serve our purpose. We don't want subjects or slaves or even new territory. We want allies who understand that attacking us was a mistake they won't repeat. The galaxy is vast and likely full of threats neither of us has encountered yet. Better to stand together than waste our strength fighting each other. This concept, that victory did not necessitate the subjugation or destruction of the defeated, contradicted every historical precedent in consortium records. More extraordinary still was the return of the neutralized Last Folly battle group, with all personnel revived and unharmed, as a gesture of what humans called good faith. It was during the initial diplomatic exchanges that the most profound misunderstanding of humanity was finally corrected. The human diplomatic team, led by Ambassador Sarah Thompson, requested a tour of consortium historical archives, specifically our records of conflicts with other species. Upon reviewing these records, Ambassador Thompson made an observation that fundamentally altered our perception of humanity. I notice a pattern in your first contact protocols. You approach new species with overwhelming force, demonstrating your technological superiority to establish immediate dominance. This worked for thousands of years because you encountered species that followed predictable evolutionary patterns of self-preservation and hierarchical submission. The reason we reacted differently isn't because we're inherently more aggressive or technologically advanced. It's because our evolutionary path was fundamentally different from anything you've encountered before. She proceeded to explain a concept that our xenobiologists had missed entirely, that humans evolved not as alpha predators, but as persistence hunters and social coiters. Their ancestral survival strategy was not based on individual strength or dominance displays, but on collective action and relentless pursuit. As Ambassador Thompson explained, when threatened, we don't seek to establish dominance within a hierarchy. We unite to eliminate the threat entirely. Your approach triggered not submission but a cooperation reflex thousands of generations deep. You didn't just attack humans, you attacked humanity, a superorganism that only fully awakens when threatened. This revelation sparked a fundamental reassessment of our xenosociological framework. The human capacity for both extreme violence and extraordinary compassion was not contradictory, but complementary. Both aspects of a unique evolutionary strategy that made them arguably the most dangerous and yet potentially most valuable allies in the known galaxy. The integration of humanity into the galactic community proceeded with unprecedented speed. Within a single cycle, human diplomatic representatives had established relations with 17 previously unknown species beyond consortium space. Their unique psychological makeup allowed them to serve as intermediaries between civilizations that had viewed each other with suspicion for millennia. The human approach to galactic politics defied conventional understanding. Rather than leveraging their demonstrated military superiority to establish dominance, they proposed what they called a galactic council, a representative body, where all spacefaring civilizations would have equal voice regardless of technological development or territorial holdings. Supreme Council of Exnar, initially skeptical, became an unexpected advocate for this approach after witnessing the human diplomatic corps in action. In his address to the Consortium Assembly, he noted, "They could have conquered us. Instead, they chose to elevate us." Their concept of mutual security through mutual respect represents a paradigm we never considered viable. Most remarkable is their insistence that technological development should not determine political influence, a principle that contradicts our most fundamental social structures yet seems to function with remarkable effectiveness. The human impact on consortium culture was equally profound. Their information networks, open to our scholars under the Cultural Exchange Program, revealed artistic expressions, philosophical concepts, and social structures utterly foreign to our understanding. Most disturbing to our stability monitors was the human embracing of internal disagreement, what they called democracy, as a positive rather than destructive force. Yet, even as humanity reshaped galactic politics with alarming speed, tensions emerged from within their own ranks. Human diplomatic communications revealed significant internal debate about their role in galactic affairs. The faction led by Admiral Matson advocated for continued military vigilance and limited engagement, while Ambassador Thompson's coalition pushed for deeper integration and cultural exchange. This internal disagreement, rather than weakening human influence as our analysts expected, somehow strengthened their diplomatic position, a paradox that continues to confound our understanding of effective governance. It was during this period of rapid change that the first warnings appeared of a threat that neither humanity nor the consortium was prepared to face. Long-range observation posts detected unusual subspace distortions in the galactic rim, patterns inconsistent with known natural phenomena or technological signatures. The human analysis of this data, shared with our scientists under the Mutual Defense Clause, contained a warning that chills me even as I record it for posterity. These patterns match theoretical models for what we call a von Neumann swarm, self-replicating machines designed for galactic-scale harvesting of resources. If confirmed, this represents an extinction-level threat to all biological life in the galaxy. Recommend immediate joint research initiative to verify and develop countermeasures. The galaxy had survived the human introduction to the galactic community. Whether it would survive what was coming next remained to be seen. Translator's note: this final section contains highly restricted information, access granted only by unanimous consent of the Galactic Council. The Joint Human Consortium Research Initiative to investigate the disturbances at the galactic rim led to a discovery that would fundamentally alter our understanding not only of humanity, but of galactic history itself. The expedition, consisting of 3 human vessels and 2 consortium science ships, arrived at the coordinates of the anomalous readings precisely 221 days after the signing of the Treaty of Seoul. What they discovered defied all established xenoarchaeological frameworks. A structure, if such an inadequate word can be applied to an engineering feat of this magnitude, extending across 17 solar systems. The scale alone was unprecedented, but it was the age of the artifact that sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Preliminary dating placed its construction at approximately 300,000 Earth years ago. Most significant was its apparent purpose. Dr. Alexander Mason, leading the human scientific team, described it in his initial report. The structure appears to be a quantum entanglement network of unprecedented scale, essentially a galactic-level communication and defense system. Most remarkably, its basic operating principles match theoretical work being done at MIT and CERN over the last decade. The mathematical constants embedded in its core programming are expressed in base 10 mathematics, a system that would be staggeringly improbable for any non-human civilization to independently develop. When this report reached Earth, all human communications suddenly ceased for 72 hours. When they resumed, a delegation led not by military or diplomatic personnel, but by a previously unknown agency called the Lazarus Protocol, requested an emergency session of the newly formed Galactic Council. What follows is the complete transcript of Dr. Mason's address to the Council, words that would forever change our understanding of our place in the cosmos. Esteemed representatives of the galactic community, what I am about to share will sound impossible. The evidence, however, is irrefutable. The ancient structure we discovered is not alien technology, it is human in origin. Genetic samples from the control interfaces match human DNA exactly. The mathematical foundations, the engineering principles, even the ergonomic design of the control systems, all are undeniably human. This presents us with an apparent paradox. How could a pre-spaceflight civilization be responsible for technology that predates their recorded history by hundreds of thousands of years? The answer has been hidden in our own myths and legends. What we call Atlantis, Lemuria, or the first civilization was not mythology but history imperfectly remembered. Approximately 312,000 years ago, human civilization achieved technological advancement far beyond our current capabilities. They expanded throughout this region of the galaxy, establishing outposts and colonies. They created the structure we discovered as a defense network against a threat they called the Harvesters, the same entity we have detected approaching from the galactic rim. Then came the catastrophe. Our records are incomplete, but it appears a conflict erupted between factions of this ancient human civilization. The resulting war utilized weapons that altered space-time itself. The devastation was so complete that it not only destroyed their civilization, but fractured reality in ways that erased most evidence of their existence. A small group of survivors, foreseeing this outcome, enacted what they called the contingency, a desperate plan to ensure humanity's survival. They returned to Earth, their civilization's birthplace, and voluntarily regressed to a pre-technological state. More importantly, they embedded specific genetic markers in their descendants, markers designed to accelerate technological development and problem-solving capabilities when activated by specific environmental triggers. The rapid advancement of human civilization over the past few millennia was not rapid at all. It was the further domain activation of dormant knowledge encoded in our very DNA, triggered by environmental factors calculated hundreds of thousands of years ago. We are not newcomers to the galactic community. We are the returning descendants of its most advanced civilization, a civilization that sacrificed itself to protect all life in the galaxy from a threat it could not defeat, but hoped its descendants someday could. The stunned silence that followed this revelation was broken only when our own xenoarchaeologist, Grand Scholar Ithlon, presented corroborating evidence, ancient consortium records of a great darkness that had occurred approximately followed by the mysterious disappearance of a technologically advanced species our ancestors had called the Forerunners. Within days of this revelation, the ancient structure began activating, responding to commands that human scientists found they could issue instinctively, commands they had never learned yet somehow knew. More disturbing was the physiological transformation observed in humans working directly with the ancient technology. Dr. Mason documented these changes in his classified report. Subject 37 displayed increased synaptic density after 12 hours of interface contact. By hour 72, brain scans revealed neural pathways previously dormant had become highly active. Most significant subjects report remembering technical information they could not possibly know, detailed schematics for technologies beyond our current understanding, star maps of regions we've never explored, and most disturbingly, vivid memories of events that occurred thousands of years ago. The ancient human defense network, dormant for millennia, was not merely activating, it was awakening something within humanity itself. The genetic markers embedded by their ancestors were not simply for accelerated technological development. They were a method of preserving knowledge across an evolutionary bottleneck, a genetic memory intended to be accessed when humanity was ready to reclaim its place among the stars. This revelation explained the inexplicable speed of human advancement following the consortium's attack. Their response wasn't just adaptation, it was remembrance. As Grand Archivist, I am expected to maintain objectivity and historical documentation. However, the philosophical implications of humanity's true nature demand reflection. Our civilization has always operated on the fundamental assumption that development is linear, that species progress from primitive to advanced in a predictable trajectory. The revelation that humanity represents not an emerging intelligence but a re-emerging one fundamentally challenges our understanding of civilization itself. More profound is the implication for our own history. If the ancient humans were the forerunners of our legends, then much of what we considered our own technological development may in fact be the archaeological rediscovery of human artifacts, mistakenly attributed to our own ingenuity. The humbling truth appears to be that the Zendhar Consortium, which prided itself on being among the eldest civilizations in the galaxy, may be little more than children stumbling through the ruins of their elders' house, claiming each discovery as our own invention. Ambassador Thompson addressed this uncomfortable truth with characteristic human directness in her address to the Consortium Assembly. The revelation of our past doesn't diminish your achievements or your place in the galaxy. If anything, it binds us together more deeply than we realized. Your civilization preserved and protected this region of space during our absence. You kept the flame of knowledge alive when we could not. Now we return not as conquerors or competitors, but as long-lost relatives finally reuniting with family we didn't know we had. This perspective, this capacity to find connection rather than superiority in such a revelation, may be humanity's most remarkable trait. They discovered they were the descendants of gods, and their response was to extend a hand in fellowship rather than dominance. As I conclude this historical record, the galaxy stands at a crossroad unprecedented in recorded history. The ancient human defense network has been fully activated, creating a shield spanning nearly a quarter of the galactic disk. Beyond this shield, the approaching threat, the Harvesters, continues its inexorable advance. What we now know about this entity exceeds even our worst predictions. The recovered ancient human records describe it as neither fully biological nor mechanical, but a hybrid consciousness that exists to convert all matter into extensions of itself. It destroyed thousands of civilizations before encountering ancient humanity, and it appears to have continued its consumption during humanity's absence. Most concerning is the evidence suggesting it has evolved since its last encounter with humans. The ancient defense network, while formidable, may not be sufficient against this evolved threat. Yet there is hope. As more humans interface with the ancient technology, they report accessing deeper layers of the genetic memory implanted by their ancestors. These memories contain references to something called the Omega Protocol, apparently a final contingency that the ancient humans never had the opportunity to implement. The details remain fragmented, but certain phrases recur with troubling frequency. The universal rewrite, consciousness transference across reality states. The multiverse pivot. Whatever this protocol entails, it appears to represent a technological feat that transcends our current understanding of physics, perhaps even reality itself. As I record these final observations, I am struck by a pattern that seems to define humanity more clearly than any other. They are creatures of duality. They possess the capacity for unprecedented destruction and boundless creation. They can be both the most dangerous predators and the most compassionate allies. They represent both our most ancient past and, perhaps, our only hope for a future. The question that now faces all sentient life is not whether humanity will change the galaxy, they already have twice before, but whether the galaxy is prepared for the transformation that is to come. For those who access this archive in future times, know this. What you are about to witness is not the end of history, but rather the completion of a cycle that began hundreds of millennia ago. The children of Earth have returned to the stars, and something far older and darker than even they remember has noticed. The true war for the fate of all life is only just beginning. End of record 9. Addendum. Access to subsequent records requires Omega-level clearance. Petitions for access may be submitted to the Interdimensional Archives Committee.